Hi, I'm Andrew Chappell. I'm a PhD researcher studying nutritional science at the University of Aberdeen. I have a postgraduate degree in human nutrition and metabolism and an undergraduate degree in sport and exercise science. I'm also a pro-natural bodybuilder and I've been in the sport now for over 10 years. I'm going to talk today about one of the most contentious issues within natural bodybuilding just now, and that is the issue of the prohibited list and a lot of the fallout surrounding the use of the WADA banned substance list. So before we get into this discussion, you have to realise that being a natural bodybuilder and being natural means different people to many different people. And I think Eric Helms does a great job, and you can find his video on YouTube, of discussing what's out there just now, what the different federations offer, and what different drug testing policies they have, who uses things like polygraphs, and things like TE ratios and things like that. So it's definitely worth a watch. So being natural will mean different things to different people, and there's a lot of grey really around the sport just now, and it's not quite as black and white as you would think. So for some people, being natural might simply mean not using anabolic steroids, whereas other people, being natural to them might mean simply not using food supplements like whey protein powder, creatine, and then other people, they will simply not use anything that you can't obtain from over the counter. So there's lots of different sort of interpretations of the real natural. Now, much of the fallout just now around natural bodybuilding has arisen from the fact that there are some prominent, well-known natural bodybuilders and organisations who have decided to move away from the use of the WADA banned substance list. And a cynical view of this is perhaps that because one of the main sponsors of these organisations currently uses substances that are banned within natural bodybuilding just now, and that their athletes are taking them, that the federations and the athletes in the federations have decided to move away from the WADA banned substance list because of this, so that they can still be termed as, or call themselves at least, natural bodybuilders. And this is a view that's not just my own view, it's a widely held view, and if you read the Natural Bodybuilding Examiner, it certainly seems to be a view that's held as well by Jim Evans, and he's written some articles on this as well, and you can go on there and you can have a look at them. So why do we follow WADA? Well, and who is WADA? Well, the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, they are a third-party organisation. They are completely independent of sport themselves, and their mission statement, I've got it here if you like, is to ensure the ethical practice of sport in the spirit of fair play, honesty, health, and excellence. And they were set up in 1999 after the fallout from the Tour de France, when the teams were basically caught giving drugs to their cycling athletes. And the IOC, International Olympic Committee, decided that something needed to be done about this, so they got together with a whole load of other sporting organisations and governing bodies and decided that they would set up WADA, an independent organisation that would try and govern the world of sport and the drug policies within sport themselves. And lots of different organisations, they currently sign up to WADA. So most notably we have the Olympic Committee, but you also have professional sports in so much as rugby, football, you have things like judo, basketball for example. I'm not sure what the situation is in America, but certainly throughout Europe, all the governing bodies, for the various professional sports, all sign up to WADA. But you also have the natural organisations, so you have natural powerlifting, natural strongman, and natural bodybuilding organisations all adhere to the WADA banned substance list as well. And it's It's an expert organisation. There are expert panels made up of toxicologists, pharmacologists, biochemists, analytical chemists, doctors, forensic toxicologists, molecular physiologists, etc., etc. And they convene meeting every single year. They all get together and they update the WADA banned substance list, and they decide what's going to go on the list. They produce a draft document. I think it comes out around about September every single year, and then it gets brought into play at the start of the new year with the various different substances that are going to be on the list. Now, it's not an exhaustive list, the WADA banned substance list, but if you go onto websites like the USADA, the Informed Sport website, and Global DRO, you can find extensive lists of the various different banned compounds that, and even actually some of the supplements. If you go on websites like Supplement 411, you can get high risk supplements, so you can find things like Core Hard, Core Burn, and Cybation Cycle on this list, and these are products, for example, that contain substances that will be currently on the WADA banned substance list. So how do WADA determine which substances will make their way onto the list? Well, there are three specific criteria, and the criteria are a potential to enhance performance, potential to be dangerous to your health, and if a substance is against the spirit of sport. And that last point there, that kind of ties into the first 2 points, because anything that influences potentially your health is probably not in the spirit of sport. Anything that sort of potentially influences fair play, honesty, and the ethical practice of sport, so allowing cheaters to prosper by taking these substances, isn't in the spirit of sport. So lots of things could have the potential to enhance performance. I mean, if you follow a high carbohydrate diet prior to a marathon, then this could enhance your performance. So they're not really talking about these sort of things, they're more talking along pharmacological interventions. So if we go back to the 3 points, these are things such as if there is scientific or medical evidence that there's a pharmacological effect of a compound, this could potentially end up on the list. And that includes things that could potentially be used as masking agents to hide other substances. Kind of makes sense. And then we have other things that could potentially harm an athlete's health. So if taking a substance, a pharmacological substance, could potentially lead to endangering an athlete's health, then it's going to make its way onto the list. One probably obvious substance that makes its way onto the list is the consumption of alcohol. So for motorsports, for example, WADA, the list currently says that if you consume alcohol and you are taking part in motorsports and you get a drug test, then you could potentially end up having a failure, because obviously it will have an intoxicating effect. So that's the list there, basically. Now, a number of the substances that have been getting a lot of attention recently, and a lot of the arguments I've heard surrounding why we shouldn't follow the WADA banned substance list, have been based around the use of compounds which are essentially steroid-like metabolites, so prohormones. Now, Eric Helms, he talked about these briefly in his own video that I mentioned earlier on, and I don't think he really made enough about this point. So, a prohormone is essentially a substance that, when consumed, will turn into a steroid within your body. So DHEA, for instance, is a prohormone. Now, there is actually another type of prohormone, which is essentially just an anabolic steroid. So back in the heyday of steroid research, around about the 50s, there was lots of different steroid compounds made, going through clinical trial, etc. Some of them didn't make it, and these substances were essentially shelved. Now, if you want, you can go and you can find these shelved compounds that have got steroid-like properties, and you can make them into products if you want. However, these products themselves, I mean, they could be even potentially more dangerous because they could be more toxic for you than simply taking your average oral steroid. So that's the other sort of kind of prohormone. So you've got the ones that will convert within your body, and you've got the other ones that are essentially prohormones. And it's worth noting that actually up until about 2008, there was quite a few natural organisations out there, well-known ones again, as I say, that actually didn't have a policy on prohormones. And if you go and look on their website, you can see there was a bit of an amnesty, so that anyone around about before 2008 taking them have been kind of allowed to get away with it, taking these prohormone substances, because there wasn't a rule before then, and they've now since been allowed to go and compete because it was prior to 2008. And again, this kind of blurs the lines a little bit of what is natural and what is not natural. So the compounds that have been getting a lot of attention are 5-AT and another compound called 7-keto. Now 5-AT, it's a big long word, I can't quite pronounce it because it's got lots of Greek letters in it and numbers. But 5-AT, it's prohormone, and it's potentially got the ability to suppress your cortisol, and if you can suppress cortisol buildup, then you can potentially inhibit muscle protein breakdown, and this could obviously then lead to more accretion of muscle tissue, and therefore an advantage over someone not taking the compound. So it's a prohormone, it falls into that sort of first criteria within the WADA banned substance list, that it's got a pharmacological effect. It falls into the second, whereby it's a prohormone, it could probably, well, it may be potentially harmful to you. And in the third criteria, in that it's against the spirit of sport, because taking this compound is essentially unethical and that you are cheating. The other compound that I was referring to is 7-keto. This itself is a product which is a metabolite, a steroid metabolite of DHEA, and up until recently it wasn't banned. However, it since came onto the banned substance list, along with all the other metabolites of DHEA. And this compound itself is thought to have sort of mild anabolic effects, and also is thought to affect your thyroid and could be a potential help you burn fat. So again, if we go back to the three criteria, it's pharmacological, it's potentially harmful, and the third criteria, it's against the spirit of sport. So that's those two compounds. Not necessarily prohormones, more steroid-like metabolites, but you could group them into that criteria. Some of the other substances, higanamine is another one. Now higanamine is a beta-2 agonist, so by that it allows your body to interact with beta-2 receptors, and it can potentially influence vasoconstriction and vasodilation. And if you go on the WADA banned substance list websites, you'll see that beta-2 agonists are specifically banned. So it's an agonist, you can't take it, it's banned because it has a pharmacological type effect. I have seen people argue that studies have only been done on this compound within animals. However, there are reasons why these studies have only been done on animals, probably largely due to ethical approval, because to test if something is truly a beta-2 agonist, you probably have to stain receptors, and people don't quite like it when you go about cutting bits of body parts off, so you have to do the work within animals. Now, the WADA banned substance list itself, it's open to changing, it's fluid, so say in 10 years time, or even 5 years time, if some more research comes out and it shows that actually there is no effect of taking something like higanamine within humans, then the compound itself, it may come off the list, but at this current moment in time, higanamine is currently a banned substance. Now, some of the other arguments I've heard surrounding the use of following WADA have centred around the fact that WADA themselves don't understand bodybuilding, and that perhaps we should be allowed to take products because bodybuilding itself is a cosmetic sport. Now, for me, this is almost a kind of ludicrous argument, because like any sport, it's really the training that makes the difference. It's what you do the 364 days prior to the competition day itself that will influence the competition. So this is where you're going to have your effect from taking a compound, and to say that because it's a cosmetic sport and that we're only flexing and posing, then potentially it doesn't make sense really in that respect. It's not, taking something on a day is probably not going to make a massive effect, but it's everything that you take prior to that. So it's a completely ludicrous argument. Other arguments I've heard are things like WADA lacks the expertise, it doesn't know enough about biochemistry to allow us to use these compounds, and therefore we should be allowed to use them because there are people within the world of natural bodybuilding who own supplement companies who perhaps know more than WADA, and these are the people that should be writing lists. Now, WADA itself is an organisation that specialises in analytical biochemistry. Their whole remit is based around trying to ensure that sports kept clean. So they know an awful lot about biochemistry, they know an awful lot about the analysis of analytes and how to detect these analytes within blood samples, urine samples, etc. And to suggest that they don't have the expertise to determine it in biochemistry is completely ludicrous, especially when you look at the expert panel. I mean, the people on these lists, they're all doctors, they're all professors. I mean, who are these people that out there that they're suggesting that they know more than WADA? The reason we follow WADA in the first place is because natural bodybuilding itself, sport itself, doesn't have the expertise, so we go to people that do have the expertise, people that are qualified to say that something could be harmful, that something can have an effect. So again, this argument for me is it's almost asinine to suggest that people with a natural body might perhaps know more about banned substances, etc., than WADA themselves. We've also heard people say that following WADA is an intellectual cop-out, that you can't think for yourself. And again, that kind of ties back into the last point that I was making. Well, WADA are the experts. These are the guys that are telling us we shouldn't take these compounds because they're potentially harmful to our health, etc., etc., that they're potentially causing a pharmacological effect. And we don't follow these lists blindly. I mean, we can all interpret things for ourselves, but those are the rules, guys, and we have to kind of stick to them. And if you're going to cherry pick and pick and choose which compounds you're going to follow and which ones you're not going to follow on the list, then it's a slippery slope. We're going to end up in a place whereby we've gone for a definitive list of what's natural, obviously in black and white, to even more grey. So for me, again, I don't follow WADA because I don't know enough about compounds, but because I realise that these guys are the expert and that we have to draw a line somewhere. Another argument I've heard is based around anomalies within the list. So people have said things like, well, we can't eat protein bars because protein bars have got glycerol in them, and glycerol's on the banned substance list, so WADA, it's a stupid list because we can't eat it because of WADA, so therefore we shouldn't follow the list. Now, WADA have made allowances for glycerol itself. It can be metabolized, so if you look at a biochemistry textbook, you'll see that if you eat glycerol, then it can be converted through various pathways, and your body can use it as an energy source. So even if you were to consume protein bars, it's not like it's going to hang around in your system for such a long time anyway. And if you follow a high fat diet, for example, since glycerol is the backbone of many fatty acids, and they form molecules known as triglycerides or TAG, then you're going to get a lot of cholesterol within your diet anyway. Now, I'm not suggesting if you ate a high fat diet that you might fail a drug test based on cholesterol, but I'm just trying to say that within a normal diet you will still get some cholesterol within your diet. And WADA, there's a statement in their frequently asked questions that is essentially to that effect, that if cholesterol being on the list is not there to sort of prohibit you from eating normal foods or anything like that, or even taking things like cough medicines, which are largely based around cholesterol themselves, but it's really there to prevent people from injecting cholesterol into themselves. So I think that's everything I wanted to say. Hopefully I've not bored you all to death, and I've made you think about a few things there. A few things I'd like to say for myself away from the WADA banned substance list are that natural bodybuilding itself, I mean, a lot of people are sitting out there and they're saying, well, this isn't my problem, and that I don't need to worry about it because I don't take these things anyway. But I would say to you that this is your problem, and that you should stand up and you should make your voice heard. That within natural bodybuilding, if you are not happy with the way people are running organisations, or if you think people are taking the sport to disrepute and damage the reputation of natural bodybuilding by essentially being pseudo-natural bodybuilders, then speak out, stand up against it, say that no, that's not right. We follow things like the WADA banned substances for a reason, and that you're not happy with people taking compounds and still calling themselves natural bodybuilders. And the other thing you can do is you can vote with your feet. So if you don't like the fact that an organisation has this rule or that rule, then they simply don't compete with them. If you don't like the fact that an organisation allows athletes that are failed drug tests to come back and compete with them, then they don't compete with them. I mean, you have your own ethics, you have your own principles, so follow them. We all got into the sport of natural bodybuilding because some of us simply didn't want to take drugs or go down that route. So stand up and let your voices be heard.